Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode 151. Art depends on luck and talent. Francis Ford Coppola.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Now, today's show is sponsored by Video Blocks. And if you guys are looking for stock footage, After Effects templates, motion graphics, Video Blocks is the site, man. I've been using them for years now. I use some clips of theirs in my movie This Is Meg for some stock footage. And this month alone, they're launching a new crazy collection of hundreds of new Unreal clips, including space, virtual reality, deep water, fantasy, and sci-fi footage. All of that comes free with your subscription, and it is a limited time. And you also get free 4K clips with your membership at no cost. And Video Blocks is now giving you 7 days of free downloads. Download a ton of stuff for free. Check it out, see what's going on with it. And remember, whatever you download during those 7 days is yours for free, royalty-free forever. So definitely give them a shot. So head over to videoblocks.com/indie, I-N-D-I-E. That's videoblocks.com/indie for the Indie Film Hustle special discount price. This episode, guys, is requested by you, the tribe. Many of you might have known, if you've been following me on Twitter or Facebook in the last few weeks, that I have been busy on a new project that I was hired to direct for Legendary Pictures Digital and The Nerdist, called The Space Program. It is a web series that will be on YouTube for a little bit. I think they're going to put the first episode on YouTube, but the rest will be behind their paywall or their subscription platform called Alpha. And then later, a few months from now, they'll probably release the rest of it on YouTube so all of you can see. Now, doing this project created a tremendous amount of challenges. And one of the challenges was to shoot 97 pages of dialogue in 4 days. And a bunch of you wanted to know how the heck I did that. And we actually did do it. And we only went into overtime, I think, one day. And it was for like 15 or 20 minutes. And that's it. So we were pretty much on schedule and on budget, which is pretty insane. I've never shot that much in all of my life. And I've shot a lot. And I've shot very fast. We averaged about 90 to 95 setups a day, moving 2 cameras all around this amazing set that we were able to shoot at. Now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, Alex, how the hell did you do this? How many people did you have? What were the parameters? What were you trying to achieve? And so on. So I wanted to kind of do this podcast to kind of tell you guys how I did it, what I did, and some tips that I would give you if you're going to shoot or attempt to shoot large volumes of pages a day. An average day on a film set could be anywhere between 3 to 5 pages, and that's heavy. TV mostly runs around 11 to 15 pages, I think, sometimes, depending on the television show. But features usually run much smaller, 3 pages, 4 pages. Like 5 is a really big day for a feature film. Again, depending on how many days you have on the schedule. So some of the parameters of this shoot was that we had basically a set that we had access to. We had 3 locations within that set, so we were all on the same soundstage the entire time. And we did have a lot of dialogue, but we only had basically 2 people talking the entire time. Everything else is either visual effects, moving things around, or so on. So those were kind of the basic parameters of this shoot. If you were going to try to shoot scenes with 4, 5, 6 people, it's a bigger ship to kind of maneuver. We were fast because we were a small ship, and we were able to, if I use the analogy of a race boat, we were able to go very quickly, turn on a dime. But the more people you add, the more that ship becomes bigger, harder to turn, harder to move, harder to get started, harder to stop, and so on. So when shooting a lot of pages, you got to keep everything very, very tight, very slim, very just exactly what you need to shoot. So we had a great crew, but it was a fairly small crew. I think the most people we had total, including everybody on set, was maybe like 16 people total. That includes clients, that includes script supervisor, But on set, we probably had about 4 or 5 people moving things around. And then we had our grip department that was standing by to move lights and so on. So, and our grip department pretty much was 2 guys. So we had our gaffer and we had our key grip, and that was basically it. So that's key 1, is to make sure you have a very small crew and a very good crew. You've got to have a very polished crew. My guys were top notch. They were moving at the speed of light. And I couldn't have done this kind of page count without an amazing DP. And my amazing DP's name is Austin Nordell, who moves very quickly. I've shot with Austin before. He helped me on This Is Meg as my gaffer. And we shot Jilly's comedy special together and done other things as well together. So I knew I would be able to move very quickly with Austin, and I tested him on this project, to say the least. But his crew was moving at the speed of light. We would just be able to move, and we had a lot of second hand between me and Austin, so that really helped. So finding a familiar crew, I wouldn't attempt to try to do this with a brand new crew of people that you just don't know. I knew a bunch of the keys, so I felt more comfortable going into the situation, that I had allies that I didn't have to work to get in many ways. So having Austin and working with me, and I'd worked with Cameron, who was our second camera before, having those small relationships and secondhand really helps the process. So I'm going to give you tip number 1. Really big tip number 1 is prep. Prepping this was huge. We had a good first AD, Dave, who was able to just break down 96 pages, schedule 96 pages. And, and the way he scheduled it was excellent. We were able to move very quickly, very efficiently. So we're not moving back and forth, doing a setup, moving back, doing another set, moving back to that same old setup. That takes a lot of time. So prepping on a shoot like this was imperative. Having a first AD who's scheduling all of this for you is imperative. Having a good director of photography that moves fast, imperative. Another big tip, and another big, without this person, we wouldn't have been able to do this, was Paul, my line producer. He was the one that gathered the troops, put everything together. And, on paper, it sounded crazy that we were going to attempt to do this in 4 days. 1 day of prep, 1 day of wrap, and 4 days in the middle of actual production. So we on paper, it looks insane. But Paul had not only faith in me and Austin, but faith that we could do it as a team, and we were able to get it done very quickly. So having that line producer who knows what to get and when to get it is very, very imperative as well. We also had a lot of gags on this show, meaning that we had a lot of art department props. We had a robot that was constantly being puppeteered throughout this entire process as well. I'm telling you, on paper, this looks insane. The only thing we were missing in kids and animals to make things more difficult. And by the way, there was kids and animals in the original scripts, which I said, yeah, no, we're not bringing in kids or animals in this. So the art department was great. Nate and Adam, anything I needed, it was done. And again, that goes back to prep. So when we were ready for that prop to come in, that prop was ready and willing. I never had to wait for props. We never had to go run out. Oh my God, I forgot that. Again, all that preparation really, really helped out a lot. The other big, huge thing about trying to shoot so many pages in 1 day or in a period of 4 days, and again, you could be as prepared and have the best crew as possible on set. You could be the world's best director, but if those actors don't know their lines or can't memorize their lines fast enough to continue with your pace or keep up with your pace, you're done. And we had an amazing lead actor. His name is Kyle Hill, very famous YouTuber on Nerdist. And I'll put a link in the show notes to his show, Because Science. It's an awesome, fun show. If you're a geek, you got to watch it. It's super, super cool. And Kyle was a rock star. He literally memorized 25 pages a day, if not more, depending on the day. And he was just amazing. He was amazing. Without Kyle moving at the speed of light, the way we were moving, this wouldn't have been able to get done. So Kyle, was such an integral part, because at the end of the day, guys, the actor on a show like that, the actor could just halt everything and we would have been screwed. So if he couldn't do it or any other reason why he couldn't move forward, we would have been done. So Kyle was the utmost professional, worked amazingly well. I mean, literally, we're like, okay, what's the next setup? And I'd go, here's 5 pages. He's like, all right, give me like 10 minutes. And he'd go and memorize this stuff and come back. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. He barely ever flubbed. He was always on point. So I was very, very lucky to have an amazing lead actor. Another tip is to keep, if you're going to try to do something like this on a feature film or a web series or anything like that, keep to a very few locations. Do not do company moves. Do not move to location to location. Try to do as much in one location as possible. So, the reason why I always use Robert Rodriguez and El Mariachi, he had a town to his disposal. He had an old Mexican town at his disposal. Well, that's a location, and he was able to move within that location fairly quickly. So we obviously had a sound stage, and we were able to jump back and forth between different areas of the sets, and that was imperative to us being able to move fast. So if you're going to try to do this with a film or web series or TV series or anything like this, you've got to keep locations down to a very minimum. If you keep it to 1-2 locations within the same area, within walking distance, that's the big key. Within walking distance, you can do something like this. You can shoot 10 pages a day. Again, those actors got to be on point. And also, a little bit of improv is not a bad thing. So if you're trying to get a script that's going to have to be word by word accurate, then this might not be a good plan to do. If you're a little flexible and allow some improv from your actors within, as long as the meaning of what they're trying to say in the script works, then this shooting this many pages in a day might work for you. Another thing I didn't do, and another tip I would say, is don't make a shot list or don't make storyboards on a page count as insane as this. I didn't have time, nor would it make any sense to try to create a shot list. I kind of, me and my DP, me and Austin just kind of went on the fly. Now, mind you, I've shot a lot of stuff before, so has Austin, so I felt comfortable doing something like that. But if you try to create unique, different angles and takes and things like that, and you have a big shot list that you're trying to catch, you're not going to be able to cook through 5, 10, 15, 20 pages in a day. It's probably not going to happen. If you're a little bit more loosey-goosey with your angles, a little more loosey-goosey with your coverage, I think it'll work a lot better. And when you guys see the show, you'll see we have plenty of coverage. We have all of our standard shots. And again, because of the kind of show it is, it's a science, geeky science web series that's kind of half Cosmos meets half Mystery Science Theater. So we can get away with a little bit more. If you're trying to do a hardcore drama or something like that, you might be a little bit more hampered. So again, shooting in this kind of style depends also on the material and what you're trying to do with that material. If you're trying to do something really artistic and really, do something really cool with angles and shots, shooting this much coverage in a day, it's probably not going to work. But if you're a little bit more loosey-goosey with the way you cover the scenes, and again, always thinking about the edit, making sure you have what you need for the edit, then shooting this much would make sense. And lastly, for something like this to work, you've got to make sure everybody is on point. Everybody on your team is working at full capacity, running full steam ahead. Because if you have a couple people dropping off or they're not feeling it, or there's some drama on the set or any of that stuff, it's not going to happen, guys. You've got to have a cohesive team moving forward, trying to achieve a goal. I looked at it as, we were all going to war together. We each grabbed a gun and we were all just, shooting, taking sniper fire left and right. And we were all just trying to get to the bunker to get to that goal, that whatever we were trying to achieve. And we all move forward on it. And that also starts with leadership. So as a director, you've got to set the pace. You've got to set the example to the rest of the crew when trying to achieve something as kind of crazy as shooting 20, 25 pages a day. You really got to show that leadership to your crew so they will follow you into that battle. If you're wishy-washy, if you're not like, oh, I don't know, what do you think? There's no time for that. Now, mind you, it took me, I didn't know all the scripts. Normally as a director, you read all the scripts and you know the scripts better than the actors. But on a show like this, This was just insane. So there was no possible way for me to learn all of that dialogue and understand exactly where we were in the schedule. So between every setup, I would just tell Dave, my first AD, I'm like, what are we shooting next? Okay, give me a few minutes. Let me go through it. And then me and Kyle would just sit there and break down the script, break down that scene. I'm like, okay, you're going to cover this. We're going to block it out this way. Once it was blocked out, we would go and set up our angles. I talked to Austin, like, all right, I need this coverage here for the wide to get our flat. And then I need coverage on the robot AI, and we need a coverage on Kyle. And then these are the inserts that the scene is owed. So we need to jump in on this, jump in on that. And that was it. And we just work our way out through each scene like that, like a machine. It was very, very machine-like and organized, and it worked, And again, I've never done anything like this before, but it worked. We got all our footage. I just finished cutting the first edit of the first episode, which I don't want to tell you too much about the episode. I don't want to give away any of the secrets of what we're doing in the series. I've been sworn to secrecy, but it's really, really cool. And in many ways, surprisingly enough, it all works. It all cuts together like butter. I didn't get into any trouble. I have enough coverage to get me out of trouble if I needed to. So it all worked out really well. So I hope that gives you guys a little bit of an idea of how I was able to do this. I know a couple of you guys asked me for the budget. I can't reveal the budget. Know that it was probably a little bit more than Meg. Had more people on the set, but it wasn't. It was under $1 million. Let's just put it that way. But this also can be achieved with a good crew on a really small budget. It can happen. It all depends on what you're trying to do. If you didn't have a set, a big set, we're doing sci-fi, we're doing visual effects, we're doing a whole bunch of stuff. If you're trying to do something more drama or action or comedy, this kind of technique really works well, and you're able to shoot a tremendous amount of stuff in a few days. Ideally, I would have probably wanted to shoot this in 5 or 6 days, which still is a ridiculous 16-page or 15, 16-page days. But for whatever reason, that seemed much more reasonable for everybody involved. And we would have been able to take our time a little bit more. But if you guys are going to try to go and shoot a feature film in this kind of time period, I'd say if you're going to try to shoot a standard, 80-minute script, take 6 to 8 days to do it if you're trying to do this kind of race to the finish line. If you could do it in a week, which is basically a 6-day week, it'd be a grueling week, but it's doable, again, depending on your project. So again, I hope this helped you guys out a little bit. I hope you picked up a few tips on how to shoot a lot of pages in a day. And one other thing, guys, and this is a little bonus I'm going to toss in here at the end. My post-production workflow on this was amazing. What I had my DIT, Tal, who is amazing. When I talked to Tal and Brandon, my audio guy, I was like, guys, we're going to shoot this on the Blackmagic Ursa 4.6K, which is one of my new toys. And I'll talk more about that later. But we shot it on that. We shot it at 4K, 422 HQ ProRes. So we could have shot RAW and all that stuff, but I didn't need that. It was going to web. I knew what I was going to be able to get out of it. 422 HQ is perfectly fine at 4K. We'd be able to pop in and pop out. No problem. Get a lot of different coverage. Oh, that's another big tip. If you shoot in 4K at a decent resolution like a ProRes 422 HQ, you'll be able to jump in, jump out, giving yourself much more coverage than you normally would get if you shot it at a 2K camera or 1080p or anything like that. So shooting that 4K, and I've said many times before, don't shoot 4K. If you're shooting 4K at a reasonable data rate, which is what I've said, then definitely do it, because you'll be able to work it and be able to get many more setups or coverage, if you will, in post. So back to the workflow. So when I talked to Brandon and Tal, I'm like, guys, I'm going to be shooting ProRes. I asked Tal, you know DaVinci by any chance? He goes, yeah, I know DaVinci. He's like, could you set all this up for me in DaVinci? He's like, absolutely. So literally on set, as the cards were being dumped to him, he would data wrangle everything and then basically be my assistant editor and start organizing everything by scene, by episode in DaVinci. And also, by the way, we used a lockbox, a locket box. A locket box, what it does is it connects camera A, camera B, and sound all to the same time code. That's right. All to the same time code. And in DaVinci, when you put all of it together in a folder, you just go sync, and it automatically syncs everything. It was insane to watch him do. It was so wonderful. So he created this entire project for me on set, Didn't do any editing, a little editing with the bloopers and stuff, but nothing major. Didn't do any of the major editing or didn't start creating scenes or anything like that. And he exported the project. I brought it into my suite. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. On Monday, imported it, and guess what? It all was there. I had all my dailies sunk. There's no offline editing. Everything's going to be edited online right there in DaVinci. I'm jumping back and forth between color. It is glorious. The workflow is wonderful. I have all 4 tracks of audio, my lavs, my boom, everything all set up there so I can choose my audio tracks, all sunk for me already. This could have been a week of work, and it was able to be done by doing a smart workflow. So something else to think about when trying to shoot so many pages in a day. And I have a video that I shot with Tal. I might put it up on YouTube in the next few weeks. I want to kind of put together a nice little post around it about how we actually did the workflow, because I was so blown away by it. And because we're using DaVinci and not Premiere or some other program, it all just stayed in this wonderful ecosystem, and it was just glorious. So to answer everyone's question, that is how I shot 96 plus pages in 4 days. Now, if you want the show notes for this episode, go to indiefilmhustle.com/151. And guys, if you like the episode, if you like the show, if you like the podcast, if you like the website, tell a friend, tell a couple friends. Please, I want to get as much of this information out to the world as possible. And at the end of the day, I want to help as many filmmakers as possible, and hopefully inspire other filmmakers and indie filmmakers to go out and make their movies, man. And it's all done. So as I continue on my path as a director and as a filmmaker, I'm going to report back to you guys through the podcast, through Indie Film Hustle, however I can, and share my experiences with you guys. So hopefully you can learn from my journey, and hopefully it helps you on your artistic and filmmaking journey. So as always, keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.